As fire raged through buildings and black citizens ran for their lives, a 2,000-strong white supremacist mob overthrew the government of Wilmington, North Carolina. After months of stirring racial prejudice, Southern Democrats destroyed businesses and property owned by black citizens in a majority black population city. The Fusionist biracial government elected in Wilmington was overthrown, and the white rioters took the lives of as many as 300 black residents. The horror in Wilmington marked a dark day in American history and a tragic turning point in post-reconstruction politics. Welcome to History on Fleek. Today we look at the Wilmington Massacre of 1898. Decades before 1898, the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution was ratified in North Carolina. The Republican-led state legislature and governorship were only keen to see the important amendment passed. The progressive arm of the two-party system, the Republican Party, had a biracial membership policy. While it undoubtedly served the party by assuring the votes of freedmen, the party's service to Wilmington's black population was significant. Wilmington's black representation could be seen in a range of prominent local positions, such as city aldermen, court clerks, policemen, street superintendents, and even a member of the Board of Audit and Finance. In the 1880s, African Americans had a sizable role in Wilmington's marketplace. Freedmen would make up around 35% of the county's service jobs in the form of grocers, dryers, and bankers. Over time, many persons of color were able to move beyond service roles and into skilled work. The higher paid work and higher demand for it meant 30% of the county's craftsmen were black people. Half of Wilmington's tailors were black, 90% of Wilmington's barbers were black. 10 of its 11 restaurants were under black ownership, and Alexander Manley and his brother Frank ran the only black daily newspaper in the country. However, the social gains made by Wilmington's persons of color were noticed by the white population, and their resentment was growing. The conservative Democrats of Wilmington did not welcome the development and growth in black-owned capital, business, and representation. On their retaking of the state legislature in 1870, Democrats set about reversing much of the Republican progress made in the state. The policy changes were littered with oppressive measures against black citizens, including the outlawing of interracial relationships, and public school segregation was getting mandated. Wilmington's black citizens faced something of an impossible task. While they made up 60% of the county population and considerable veins of its workforce, banking collapses and credit rate markups meant savings accounts, taxations, and property ownership was scarce. Ultimately, as poorer whites found unskilled labor going to black citizens and affluent whites found themselves covering 96% of the city's taxes, Wilmington's black population moved both too fast and too slow for the white population. It was not uncommon for black residents to find their businesses torched at nighttime. Ironically, despite such open acts of hostility, the economic and political standing of black residents staved off the social landscape spiraling. Just a year before the Wilmington riots in 1897, 9 influential men aggrieved at the perceived advantage of black representation conspired to take control of the local government. The Secret Nine was aided by Furnifold Simmons, the state party chairman of the Democratic Party, who began a campaign built on racial resentment. Simmons' main ploy was to recruit publications to print racist stereotypes and increasingly project the white population under threat. The racist propaganda depicted black residents as disrespectful towards whites, accused them of corruption, and regularly spouted the racist mythology of black men presenting a danger to white women. Simmons' statement on the Democratic Party platform was as clear as it was racially supremacist. North Carolina is a white man's state, and white men will rule it. In November 1897, a Democratic executive committee cast Democrats as saviors to Anglo-Saxon rule against the evil, anarchist, and apocalyptic rule of the Republican and Populist Fusion Party. As the 1898 election loomed for North Carolina in the coming November, white supremacy bloomed throughout the state. White supremacy clubs began opening statewide, demanding that every white man join them. Under the banner of a white government union, the organizations were able to rally many whites by advocating their jobs were being taken by black residents. The Democrats would win the 1898 November 8th election statewide, with many black citizens and Republicans avoiding the polls. The white supremacist red shirts paramilitary stalked the routes in and out of the city, using gunshots to drive away any potential black voters. The win for the Democrats was contentious on the grounds of its voter suppression, yet more consequently, Wilmington remained under its biracial government. The following morning at the Wilmington courthouse, attended by some 600 strong, noted white supremacist Alfred Waddell presented the White Declaration of Independence. The 8-part manifesto dripped in its aggrieved perceived victimhood of white citizens to black progress. Its message was clear. All gains economically and professionally made by Wilmington's black residents should be given to the white citizens. The Declaration also demanded the Daily Record be put out of print in response to Alexander Manly's article reposting the overt stereotyping of dangerous black sexuality. Waddell's address resulted in a standing ovation and over 400 signatures. More disturbingly, black residents were given 12 hours to accept or reject the proposal. Alexander Manly was to be banished from Wilmington or expelled through the use of force. Luckily for Manly, he was tipped off to the threat of imminent lynching and left town that night. The Wilmington Committee of Colored Citizens gave a written response to the ultimatum imploring peace and communication with Manly. The letter was delivered to Waddell's address the next morning, though it has been said Waddell never saw or read it. On the morning of November 10, 1898, Waddell and 500 white veterans and businessmen came to Wilmington's armory and took up rifles and Gatling guns. Their first stop was the office of the Daily Record, Alexander Manly's publication, and Wilmington's black-owned newspaper. After breaking in and vandalizing the 2-story office, they set the place ablaze, having covered the floors in kerosene. As this assault transpired, black newspapers across the state were also under attack. In what was a coordinated effort of domestic terrorism, Republicans and persons of color were blocked from entering city centers statewide. As the fire at the Daily Record blazed, the mob of white vigilantes grew to nearly 4 times its number at around 2,000 people. The white mob then dispersed to attack the majority black neighborhoods throughout Wilmington. Many of the mob were armed with shotguns, and their horrific acts continued into the night. Governor Russell ordered the Wilmington Light Infantry troops into Wilmington to quell the chaos. Yet this only led to more bloodshed. The troops openly fired upon the crowds, inevitably killing many black men. As the grim violence continued, many black residents of Wilmington fled the town, taking shelter wherever they could. Ultimately, in the worst way possible, Waddell and his supremacist vision won the day. Waddell forced both the police chief and the board of aldermen to resign at gunpoint. Under his guidance, the mob wasted no time. They established a new city council, and Waddell was elected mayor when the clock turned 4 that very day. The day following, Mayor Waddell, with light infantry troops at his backing, marched prominent black citizens out of the city. November 10th drew to a close. The Democrats had their wish, but at what cost? The massacre at Wilmington was conducted by the white supremacists of the state, and they continued in shaping the narrative afterwards. Despite the mass organization and rampant hostility carried out for weeks in advance of the massacre by whites, publications at the time characterized a race riot. Waddell himself had declared he would choke the Cape Fear River with carcasses in the press. He depicted himself as a reluctant, non-violent anti-hero who only wanted to restore order. Incredibly, any violence perpetrated by whites was painted as either self-defense or unintentional. What had been a planned act of white supremacist coup on prominent black leadership was recounted as a happenstance, serendipitous defense against black aggression. This ill and convenient narrative spread nationwide and was still effective some 100 years later. The events of November 10, 1898 mark a dismal tentpole in the American story. It details the threat of white supremacy, the suppression of the black vote, and the maddening trend of blaming white violence on its black victims. Over 100 years later, many things have changed, and over 100 years later, many things remain the same. This is History on Fleek, and we'll see you next time.